video for section 2.5, part 1. So in this section, we're continuing with factoring, but now we're going to have a number in front of our x squared, here it's represented by a, that we cannot remove. Okay, it cannot be removed as a greatest common factor. So we just have to deal with it. Okay, so when a is not 1, in the trinomial form where we have ax squared plus bx plus c, and it can't be factored out, then another process is needed. This process is called the AC method. Okay, so steps for factoring with the AC method. So as with any factoring question, first we check to see if we can factor out a greatest common factor. So we need to do that first or it can mess up our factoring. Okay, so we're going to look. This is our example. We're going to look and see, is there a greatest common factor? So we look at our x's first. X, no x, we can't take out a letter. 2, 7, 4. So there's no number that goes into 2, 7, and 4. So that means that there is no greatest common factor. So for this one, greatest common factor, no. Next, can we reorder? If needed, reorder the terms in descending power of the variables. Here we have x to the 2, x, and nothing. So no, we do not need to reorder. They're in the right order. Next step, so this is something new. We're going to change the ax squared plus bx plus c to be x squared plus bx plus ac. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to circle whatever is in front of our x squared. We're going to circle that. This is a very important step because people often forget this later. So you're going to circle it and you're going to draw an arrow to your c. So this is your a and this is your c. So you're going to circle your a value and draw an arrow to your c value. And then you're going to multiply those two numbers together. So you're going to do 2 times that, that looks like too much like an x. 2 times -4, and you get -8. So you're going to change this now and rewrite it as x squared, so we've removed the 2, plus 7x, so we rewrite that, doesn't change at all, and then this multiplication, -8. Okay. Now from this point, we're going to factor. Now we're at step 4. Factor. Find two integers that product is AC and whose sum is B. So basically what that's saying is we now want two numbers that multiply together to give us -8 and that add together to give us 7. Okay? And in this case, that's going to be 8 and -1. So we rewrite out our brackets like we normally would. X plus 8, x minus 1. Okay, now we need to do, so hold on a second. So this step is new, step 3, step 5, and step 6. Those are the different ones. Okay, so step 5 now. Divide each constant factor by a and simplify. So this number that we circled, one of the reasons why it's important to circle it is because in this step, we need to divide each of our numbers at the bottom of our brackets by whatever we circled here. So here we have 8, so we divide 8 over 2. Here we have 1, so we divide 1 over 2. 2 because that's what we circled, that was our A. Okay, so now we see if we can simplify. So here, that's part of step 5 is simplify. So 8 divided by 2, we can simplify that to be 4, but we cannot simplify 1 over 2. That just doesn't simplify further. So then we're going to go to step 6. If a fraction remains, like our 1 over 2, the denominator becomes the coefficient of the x term. What does that mean? It means that this 2, instead of being here, because we don't want a fraction our final answer, is going to move right here in front of the x. Okay? So we get 2x, and then it disappears, and we just get this on the top, the -1. So our final answer is x plus 4, 2x minus 1. If we check that and multiplied it back out, so did this multiplication, we would end up with 2x squared plus 7x minus 4, which is what we started with. Okay, so this is a little bit more, a few more steps, but similar structure. So now let's try some examples. Okay, so for this first question, remember we always look for a greatest common factor. Make sure you get into the habit of that. It's one of the things that people miss often on tests. So we look at our letters first, x to the 2, x, nothing. So we can't remove an x. Next, we look at our numbers, 4, 11, 6. There's no number that divides those three, so there is not a greatest common factor. And then we look x2, x, nothing. We also do not need to reorder. So no and no. Okay. So now you're going to circle your a value, whatever's in front of your x squared, and you're going to draw an arrow to your 6. I highly, highly recommend you do not skip this step. Okay? All right. So now we have x squared plus 11x. So we don't write this anymore in our next step. This stays the same. And for our final value here, we're going to multiply our 4 and our 6 together. So 4 times 6 is going to give us 24. Okay, so this 24 is from 4 times 6. So now this is in a format that we recognize. So we're going to now factor. Oops. So we need numbers that multiply together to give 24. So we have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So those all multiply together to give us 24. So we need two numbers that multiply to give us our last number, which is 24, and two numbers that add together to give us our middle number, which is 11. Okay, so this is our same normal thing. So we're going to look at each of these pairs and we're going to find ones that add up to 11. So this doesn't work, this doesn't work. 8 plus 3, that gives us 11. So 8 and 3. Okay, so now we're going to write x plus 8, and we'll write it like this, leaving a space. X plus 3, okay? And we're going to go back to the very top here, and we're going to divide by the number that we circled. So here we circled a 4, so we're going to fill in a 4 here. Okay, now we're going to try and simplify if we can. Can we simplify 8 divided by 4? Yes. That's x plus 2. Can we simplify this 3 over 4? No, we can't. So, whoops. We can't simplify it. So we're going to take our 4 and we're going to move it in front of the x. Okay? So we can't simplify this further, so this 4 needs to move over here. So we get 4x plus 3. And now we don't have a greatest common factor, so that is our final answer for this one. Okay, so just as a reminder, what our steps were: first, we multiplied our a value, so that's a first term, with the c value. So this was a and this was c. Okay, then we factored as normal, using this step as our new factor. Then we divided by our circled a value from the beginning. So we divided based on this circled value from the beginning. So we got our 8 over 4 and our 3 over 4. And in this one, we simplified. And then we, anything left over, left over fraction. So the fraction that we couldn't simplify, this 3 over 4, then the denominator became the coefficient in front of the x. Oops. Okay, so those are our different steps. So let's try another example. So here, we're going to start off looking for our greatest common factor. So we have an m, a nothing, and an m squared, so we can't take out a letter. Then we have 7, 10, and 6. So there's nothing that will divide those three numbers. So there's no greatest common factor. But these are not in the correct order. We have an m, a nothing, and an m squared. So we need to reorder this. So reorder yes. So our first step is to put them in the right order. 6m squared minus 7m minus 10. Then our next step is we're going to circle what's in front of our m squared, and it's going to get multiplied to our negative 10. So we're going to write m squared minus 7m minus 60. Okay. So this is our starting place. So now we're going to factor as we normally would. So we have to write out all the factors of 60. We don't have to write these out, but I think it helps. Whoops. 3 and 20, 4 and 15, 5 and 12, and 6 and 10. Then we need two numbers that are going to multiply together to give us minus 60, and they're going to add together to give us minus 7. Okay, so we need to look at our different pairs here until we get ones where we can figure out a way to subtract till we get to minus 7. So this won't work, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work. If we have negative 12 and we add 5 to it, it's going to give us negative 7. So minus 12 and 7, minus 12 and 7. So now for our next step, here we're using m's. So we have minus 12, and we write it over, like that. M plus 7. And then for our denominator here, we're going to use the number that we have circled up here. So I'm going to put in a 6 in both places. Now I need to simplify if I can. So I have my m. 12 divided by 6, I can simplify that. It gives me minus 2. But I cannot simplify, oops, it's not 7. What did I write? Sorry, I was looking at this 7. This should be 5. So I can't, because I read that, but then I wrote the 7 from here. Sorry about that. Okay, so here we have 5 over 6. So we can't simplify this fraction, 5 over 6. So we need to take the 6 from down here, and it needs to move up in front of the m. So we get 6m and then plus 5. And that is the final answer for this question. Okay. Gonna do one more together. So what I want you to do for this question right now is I want you to pause right here, and I want you to give it a try. And then once you've tried it, I'm going to go through it, and you can see if you've got the right answer. Make sure you have the idea down. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you've tried this. So the first thing we do, we look and see, is there a greatest common factor? So p squared, p nothing. So we can't take out a letter. 8, 18, and 5. There's no number that can equally divide all those. So there's no greatest common factor. Okay. Do we need to reorder? P squared, p nothing. Those are in the right order. So greatest common factor, no. Reorder, no. Okay. So we're going to circle our a value and multiply it with our c value. So I'm going to rewrite this. I get p squared minus 18p. Now I'm going to multiply 8 and minus 5, and I get negative 40 when I do that multiplication. So I'm going to write out all the factors for 40, 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. So I'm looking for two numbers that are going to multiply together to give negative 40 and add together to give negative 18. So I'm going to look at my my brackets, and I'm going to see how am I going to combine to get negative 18. So here, if I look, I have 20. I take away 2, that would give me 18. So I'm going to have 2, and I'm going to have minus 20, 2, and minus 20. So now I'm going to do my brackets. P plus 2 over P minus 20 over. So I look at what I circled in step 1. It was an 8, 2 over 8, 20 over 8, like this. Now I look to see if I can simplify my brackets. So 2 over 8, yes, I can simplify that, but I can't remove it completely. I can divide the top and bottom by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2. 20 over 8, same thing. I can simplify it, but I can't remove the fraction completely. Here I can divide the top and bottom by 4. Okay? So that gives me P plus 1 over 4, P minus 5 over 2. Now, these bottom numbers are going to go here in front of the P. This bottom number is going to move here in front of the P. So I get 4P plus 1, 2P minus 5. Oops. And that is the final answer for this question. So now you're going to go to page 98, and you're going to do question 2, A to F.